Do you guys know who Elon Musk is? You know, the CEO of SpaceX, the guy who plans to get humans to Mars. Anyways, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been nearly 2 years since he first announced his bold aspirations to send men to Mars aboard SpaceX's largest and most powerful rocket, the Starship. And his most massive ship is on its way to becoming a reality. Yeah, Musk has finally revealed his artificial gravity spaceship. Do you want to know more about it? Of course you do. Stick around to the end of the video. Starship, formerly Big Falcon Rocket, is a launch system expected to exceed Falcon Heavy and open the path for Mars colonization. Also private space tourism and an inter-Earth transit system. SpaceX is putting prototypes through their pages at a facility in southern Texas and has already completed several brief test flights. According to the company, Starship will be not only reusable, but it'll use both the rocket and its booster capable of landing after launch and being fully recovered for future missions. Falcon 9 rockets from SpaceX are partially reusable. The company can land and relaunch the boosters on a regular basis, but not the rocket's upper part or stage. So what's the big deal about artificial gravity for SpaceX? Well, hey, would you look at that? That's what we're here to take a look at. SpaceX relies heavily on gravity. The mission of SpaceX is to send the first humans to Mars by 2026. But that's just the beginning, because they also intend to develop a human colony on Mars, and in the end turn humanity into a multiplanetary species. And as you may be aware, there's a lot of studies that show it's very harmful to be weightless for long periods of time. It's not just about weightlessness. Our bodies are also affected by a variety of negative impacts like bone density loss, muscle loss, fluid loss, cardiovascular difficulties, eye strain, and a lengthy list of other things. It's all about gravity now. Imagine landing on Mars and being completely unable to stand or move for several days, apart from the nuisance of, having health issues when you don't have access to a decent clinic on Mars, and any health issue could be very life-threatening. We gotta do everything possible to keep those astronauts healthy. And apart from health concerns, comfort aboard the spacecraft should also be a priority. Since the goal is to collect 100 individuals on a trip that'll last many months, the initial crewed Starship voyages to Mars will almost certainly be very sparsely populated, with trained astronauts taking the lead. However, if production and infrastructure are complete and costs are reduced, SpaceX plans to bring every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants to fly to Mars and can afford to buy the ticket to Mars. As a result, it's possible that in the future, SpaceX may be required to transport passengers who are not trained astronauts, with exceptional physical preparation. Basic human needs like showering, going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth, and even cooking, as we do on Earth, just couldn't be met. Everything would be different and uncomfortable, especially for people who just haven't been in space before, which I dare say would be the majority. And enduring it for 6 months could cause quite a bit of problems and stress. Could we actually create artificial gravity in space? During launch and the break of Earth's gravity and atmosphere, astronauts are subject to intermittent linear accelerations. These forces, on the other hand, aren't strictly manufactured gravity, but rather side effects of space travel. In this case, we're talking about a persistent force created by technology specifically to achieve this result. Unfortunately, there's no practical alternative yet that's been created and implemented. This is primarily owing to the size of components required and the cost of getting all those bad boys up into space. Of course, we might construct the ship in orbit and use materials mined from moons or asteroids, and we could theoretically continue the human occupation of low-gravity locations indefinitely if we could construct artificial gravity technologies. Of course, other difficulties like, food, water, or social contact would probably have to be addressed first. Artificial gravity would remove, or at the very least reduce, the negative health effects of low to zero gravity on humans. So you're like, come on, guy, tell me how SpaceX is gonna make artificial gravity in space. You wanna know if they're gonna make artificial gravity in space? Okay. There's been no indication that SpaceX intends to include artificial gravity in their transportation system to Mars and the rest of the solar system. However, Musk responded to a fan's question regarding the feasibility of attaching another spacecraft to a launch to produce artificial gravity in a series of tweets he sent out a few months ago. Here, Musk responded positively, implying that it may be the company's strategy. It's possible that it will happen actually soon, too, once the spacecraft has passed a series of tests and is ready to embark on its missions. They'll probably work on artificial gravity. Depending on how realistic a franchise is attempting to be, science fiction was a great source of inspiration. Using a specific device for rotating pieces, starships will generate their own gravity. While the concept is first similar to that of a hyperdrive, the second is actually totally practical. The concept is essentially a hub ship, or a wheel hub, serving as basically the spokes of the wheel. It would be positioned between 2 passenger starships, which it would then communicate throughout the 6-month journey to Mars. The passengers on the board would feel as if they're being pulled down because of the centripetal force produced by the wheel's rotation. The scientists calculated that a rotational state of 31 meters per second would be suitable for a system measuring around 100 meters, or 97.99 meters to be precise, using a spin calculator, that is. Konstantin Zulkowski supplied the first recorded example of this idea, which dates back to over a century. He proposed employing a rotating force to produce outer space rocket devices in research called Investigation of Outer Space Rocket Devices. Well, it was 1903, come on guys. Since then, several versions of this concept, such as the von Braun wheel, the O'Neill cylinder, and the tourist stand, have been proposed for space stations and habitats. Some designs, such as NASA's Nautilus X space station, would employ a revolving torus to produce artificial gravity, or the Gateway Foundation's proposal for a commercial space station are being examined for development. The spinning process acceleration would thus be entirely unstable. Because the torus does not tolerate bending, it will remain floppy in the early stages of the rotation. And another issue appears that it's just too dangerous to rely on a single torus to prevent it from flying off into deep space uncontrollably. If the torus breaks down for whatever reason, it will most likely inflict a lot of damage to the individuals inside and stop the mission entirely for the spaceship. SpaceX could quickly reduce the time it takes to go from Earth to Mars to 100 days or less with orbital refueling. Given the extensive complexity and the adjustments required to make such a technology functional and the Starship compatible, the value proposition of artificial gravity on 3 months of a journey is likely to be somewhat less evident. Musk said SpaceX has considered the proposal. He didn't say whether the company opted to drop the idea or pursue it further. So, all that nonsense out of the way, is the Starship all set to fly? Over the last 3 years, several upper stage designs have been tested at SpaceX's Starbase location. The company commenced operations in 2019 with the launch of Starhopper, which is a 39-meter-tall test piece, quote-unquote, that resembled a water tower and sailed 150 meters above the ground. The first prototype SN8 soared to the height of 12.5 kilometers in December of 2020, and after which it flopped back to Earth, sending important engineering data on the vehicle's final phases of return from space to SpaceX. SN8, on the other hand, rushed and crashed into the landing pad, causing it to crumble and then subsequently explode. 3 additional test devices burned before the Starship SN15 made a soft landing in May 2021, after signing a multi-billion-dollar deal with NASA earlier this year to fly astronauts to the moon. SpaceX is on a little bit of a tight deadline to deliver an operational Starship by 2024. Even a little static fire test, which is bigger and heavier than anything SpaceX has launched thus far, can go horribly wrong. After all, the goal is much greater than space tourism, and it all depends on how successful and safe the Starship is at carrying passengers to space and then safely returning to Earth. So that's about it for today's video, guys. We really do hope you enjoyed it. Do let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Until then, I'll see you later, my fellow aliens.